Success consecrates the most offensive crimes. Seneca. Whew, good one. Deep. That was a deep one. That's for your feels there, Jay. We are against the grains. Myself, Jeff Black, joined with Jason Theobald, aka Scoob. Robo's out. He's attending a funeral. So he said we could chat with Mr. Reigning USA, Jordan Hutchinson.
No, 2 years.
Oh,
There's
2
a
years.
guy
2
in
years
there.
ago.
He
Sorry.
took 2 years off.
2 years off. Sorry.
Yeah,
And kind of talk about the grind with him. And we're looking forward to that conversation. Robo said he wasn't jealous that we were talking to a buff man without him being present. So we're good with doing that. But with that being said, let's get into how your last 7 days have been, Jay. So I'll go to mine, and then let's kick this thing off with old J Man here and get going.
Yeah, man. 7 days have been good. A lot of things, moving pieces with new ethics, all good stuff. The clinic. I got another interview with a nurse practitioner coming up next Friday. We're growing, we're expanding. We've got a lot of good avenues and areas to bring in new business. As far as Scooby Prep and Scooby Health, coaches are doing well. I'm doing well. I signed people this, last week. I've got a lot of people doing well. A lot of health stuff mainly, but I had some people in shows last week. They did well. Overall, it's good stuff, man. This time of year is a little harder, on the coaching front. People are sometimes taking time off and, getting ready for Thanksgiving and Christmas, and you got to respect that. People, need to allocate funds, but business has been steady, man. So I really have no complaints on that front, and everything's good at the home front. Kids are doing well. So yeah, good stuff.
Legit, dude. So my last 7 days have been, I started writing a new book idea about, it's going to be based upon like brotherhood, how men successfully and abysmally navigate their personal work and and friendships. Because it's an interesting phenomenon. I've just gotten to kind of witness over the 43 years of life that a lot of men, if anything, just stay silent or push you down rather than help you up. And I really want to kind of get to the crux of that. So I decided I'm going to reach out to people like that actually don't like me and be like, hey, I want to interview you for my book because I want to figure out your angle and where I went wrong, and kind of talk about how communication gets crosswayed with people and how that leads to fucking bombs. You just can't ever put back the broken glass in the same way.
Do we have an ETA on the current book, or is there nothing?
So that one, the cover Steven's partner is working on the cover, so I should get that back in a week or two. The biggest thing is, dude, no book publisher will contact me about trying to produce my book through a printing thing. So Lacey and I are gonna have to like go in person and just try to pitch it to try to get it sold. So because Amazon takes like 60% of your cuts. Yeah. So when my book comes out, I'm like, well, shit, I don't want to do that. So I'm not against the paperback doing it, but there was something cool that my friend pointed out to me. It's like, if you film yourself recording the book chapters, he's like, you can put that on YouTube and release that like as a one-time thing to get around that Amazon stuff. And people can listen to your YouTube just on, on the phone. I'm like, damn, man, that's a great idea, Joe. So besides that, and my book that I'm waiting to hopefully get published, I would like to get out by Christmas. Went to the Tennessee Bama game.
Nice.
And dude, Tennessee choked it. I had one weird altercation with a man in the bathroom where he said a very slanderous word to me. And then this like big black dude like grabbed him by his shoulder and was like, that boy in orange is too big for you, son. Come with me. And I felt weird because I was ready to like pull my dick out at this moment. It was like, do I pee here or do I not pee here? Because it's in Alabama and I'm wearing Tennessee colors. But besides that, it was a nice experience. I hung till the end. So the fans, dude, they started waving at the Tennessee fans and they left early. And she was like, let's go. And I'm like, I'm not being waved at. I'm going to take this loss like a man and sit here until it hit zero.
What was the score?
It was like, ended up being 34-20. Like we were winning 20-7 at first half. And then they just blew us up in the second half.
Meltdown.
Yeah, fucking total meltdown. Yeah, I'm actually live in Nashville, but I grew up in Knoxville for like 20 years.
Okay.
So diehard Orange fan. Oh, where are you from?
Well, I'm Western North Carolina, so I'm in Nashville. I'm about to move away, literally a week from today.
Where are you moving to?
Texas, Fort Worth.
Fair. All right. Well, I gotta say something now. Do you like Asheville or you don't like Asheville? Okay.
No,
so I went there for 2021 for my birthday, and dude, it was wokeism at its height. Yep. The gym was just full of like a bunch of just pussies who
Yeah.
just didn't. I was like thoroughly like, this is
You can
not the city for
imagine I
Jet
don't
Black to
fit in
reside in.
here.
Yeah,
I
I
Yeah.
don't
bet
fit
you don't
in
fit
here
in
at
at all. I bet you don't fit in one fucking bit. Actually,
There's some good people around here. I grew up here, but like,
right.
and there are a couple good gyms, you know, but for the most part, dude, it is cringy beyond belief here.
100%. So I have a question, Jordan, letting you know everyone out there. This is Jordan Hutchinson. He's joining us today. But why are you leaving and going from Asheville, North Carolina, which has that cool drum circle on Friday night that has a bunch of homeless people that participate? That was wild as shit to see.
Dude,
Like hundreds of
it
people just sitting
smells
there
like
beating
body
random
odor
shit.
too.
Oh yeah,
That's
it
all you
smells
can
so
smell is
bad.
body odor.
Yeah, I was high. But why are you moving to Fort Worth?
So there's a lot of opportunity out there. So I've been to Texas. I had never gone to Texas before January of this year. And I went in January and June to visit my coach, who Chris Tuttle. He lives in Fort Worth. And then so trained at the gyms out there, networked with Gasp and everybody at Destination Dallas, and kind of toured around. And I was like, oh my gosh, I love it here. This is my kind of people. And then did the Texas Pro.
Yep.
And then I went back to Houston a couple weeks ago. I stayed with Hunter Labrada and trained out there and stuff. And I'm like, I mean, we had already planned on moving after Texas Pro, but every time I'm out there, there's new bodybuilding opportunities for me. It's just a bodybuilding hub. Mm-hmm. And I'm tired of being in the middle of nowhere as far as bodybuilding is concerned. Like, it's hard to be here. I mean, I stay focused no matter what. So it's almost like I kind of go away and hide out on my own and, you know, plug away at my off seasons. I guess we'll talk about that a little bit, but at this point I want to be immersed in it. So Texas is the place.
And you don't have kids yet?
No, not yet.
Do it now, man. Like I have to stay, you know, I stay in Kentucky for mine. Even though I'm divorced, but I stay in Kentucky, and there's not a whole lot of opportunity here for bodybuilding. I remember when I went to the Mecca, I met Charles Glass. He's sending me clients. Like, people are walking up to me, talking to me like, dude, you look good. What do you do? And it's like, I don't get any of that. And I'm like, this was like the Mecca of bodybuilding. I was like, man, I wish I could be in something like that. But, you know, I've grown roots here, and it is what it is. But I think I think for sure, man, for a young up and comer, and you don't have big roots there, it's a good move. So.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. That's what we're feeling like. I mean, and now I've signed with Gasp and Better Bodies, and so I'll be at Destination quite a bit.
Yep.
And there's just amazing gyms out there. My main gym will be Absolute Recomp in Fort Worth. Got all like Panada, Arsenal strength, tons of great equipment. Where here it's a lot of older gyms or super corporate gyms.
Yep, that's how I am here. I don't have anything great either. Yeah.
When you say better opportunities for our listeners, like, I know I'm listening to this and I'm thinking, okay, the top amateur goes pro. He's obviously well strategic in how he's doing this, because you very rarely compete, which is kind of what we're going to talk about, the grind and how you suck on it when most people won't, and they just compete year after year after year. But when you say opportunities, what opened up for you that said, hey, I'm just going to leave this life behind? Because it's rough to leave everything you know behind.
It is.
I often kind of wonder why I moved to Nashville, like 2.5 hours west of Knoxville, when I really wanted to go to like Boise, Idaho when I was 20 years old and just live up there, and ended up doing Portland. But anyway, I'm just curious on that, so the listeners know.
Yeah, I mean, so I do online coaching, and I've helped people since like 2018. I started helping people, obviously on the side, and then it became a full-time coaching, personal training, sponsorships, bodybuilding thing. As of February of 22, I quit my regular job and just went all in on my own stuff. And so, you know, every time I've been out there to Texas, it's like people are always coming up to talk to me. People know who I am. They're like, oh my gosh, I follow you and whatever. And it's not like I'm famous or anything, but around here, people hardly even know what bodybuilding even is. Like, I have to explain to most people, okay, bodybuilding is where I stand up on stage and next to nothing in pose. And they're like, that's really weird. You know, it's that conversation. Like, people don't even know what it is hardly around here. Whereas out there, I'm more appreciated. So, you know, as far as competing, I'm going to be competing more often now. So it's kind of a strategic time to do this. Whereas prior, you know, when you're in the off season and you don't look as impressive, people aren't necessarily coming up to chat with you as much. So, but putting myself around those environments with more opportunity for, I mean, obviously a bigger population is going to have more opportunity for clients and so forth.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the thought process. I mean, every time I've been out there, there's, like I said, a new opportunity.
Yeah.
So it's just monetizing bodybuilding at this point. We'll do better out there by far.
100%. Yeah, I'll tell you something, man. When you get out there, you're going to blow up with a lot of gym pop people if you already aren't. And that is like going to be the bread and butter for your post career life. So if you have any questions on that, you can always hit us up if you ain't rolling them. But one thing I was going to say was learning some of that functional stuff that Scoob teaches over there and all that. That's some pretty cool stuff. And I know there's big rage about that out there. I'm not getting into it. I'm just saying that the more tools you equip yourself with, the better off you're going to be to build that business that roots in bodybuilding, but will spread out to, because that was how I built my in-person business. A lot of the bodybuilders in the gym didn't want to train people. And I was doing it. So they'd be like, just go talk to Jeff. Just go talk to Jeff. And that's how I built a pretty steady book in person. So
yeah, I'm wanting to do some in-person training at destination. So I'll probably like set up 1 or 2 days a week, even though it's like 40 minutes away. I'll just stay there all day and just train people. And then, there's a lot of younger kids out there that probably couldn't afford in-person training sessions that would want like an online coach or whatever. But I definitely want to get more into the functional stuff, like functional health and monitoring blood work and helping people do things the right way, and just continue to develop my knowledge as far as that stuff goes too. I'm definitely really into that.
I'm going to tell you a golden thing, and then let's get into this because I want to get to know who you really are and what kind of got you motivated to turn pro, because that isn't anything easy, as we all know.
Yeah.
When you do the in-person, think about doing 2 to 3 people at a time and do it over an hour, because they're going to be taking a break and resting. Right. And that's the way you can help maximize your dollars per hour while you're there and make it more affordable, where people will kind of be like, all right, man, like I don't mind paying $50 for an hour to show up to get my legs kicked in for 12 sets of legs, wherever the arbitrary number is, with 2 other dudes. And you're standing there making $150, which justifies you that long day there. That'd be my only advice for someone who does in person and watched ways doing it. If you charge a lot one-on-one, you'll always see that turnover. And that's very stressful to kind of clip at that high rate over time, unless you get into like a lawyer or a doctor sect or something like that. And then you're all different money. So, but let's get into this, man. All right. So we've chatted. We know you're from Asheville. We know you're big as shit by the way you look on the screen. I'm sitting here looking. I mean, let's get into this. What made you find bodybuilding? What kind of is your background? Were you into sports? What was kind of life growing up for you like, and what got you into this? And then let's get over how you approached your preps when you decided to go in on bodybuilding.
Yeah. So I definitely never had the thought of going into bodybuilding before I was into the gym. I was always actually really skinny, but super athletic. So I played a lot of basketball. I was very fast, very athletic, crazy vertical jump, like was more of a freak athlete type, but not always as talented. Like I'm 5'10", so if I were to continue playing basketball, I would have been a point guard, and I was never good at that. So played basketball. I played 1 year of football in high school, and I was pretty good at it. But again, I just like hadn't had enough experience, not enough talent, just kind of raw athletic talent and ability. And then I got in the weight room with the football guys, and that's kind of what got me started on lifting, because prior I actually hated weightlifting. Like the basketball buddies I had that we'd go to the Y and play basketball, they'd be like, all right, let's go lift some weights for a bit. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not going. Like I hate lifting. So that was always me. I absolutely hated it because I was overwhelmed. And I tell a lot of people this. I remember trying to do P90X at home. And like at the end of the video, it would talk about protein intake and macronutrients and all this stuff and creatine, and all this stuff was so over my head. I was like, I don't even know the first thing about all this. I'll never build muscle. There's too much. It's too complicated. And so like I kind of had this defeated mindset, even though from like age 14, I wanted to have size on my frame. Yep. And so I just started training with the football guys and had no idea what I was doing. and started responding very quickly. So within the first several months, I gained like 30 pounds and looked just as lean.
Wow.
You know, the beginner gains, like but I was in there training extremely intense, eating a house every day. I mean, I was just eating everything I could get my hands on. I was 17 when I started. So 17 and 18, I'd gone from 165 to like 195. And had a great response. I mean, even my high school basketball coach accused me of steroids in high school in front of the whole team. Like,
What a privilege.
I know, right? I was like, that, because gosh, that was even 3 years before I ever touched anything. So I mean, it was definitely interesting to see my genetics early on. And so then I had a few people from the gym suggest that I compete. And I'm like, I don't know. I find that kind of strange. Like, I don't think I could stand up there and do that. I don't think that's for me. They kept suggesting it. Everybody kept suggesting it. And so then I tried it. I did my first natty show in 2015. It was SNBF. It was down in Spartanburg, South Carolina.
I remember that org. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was my first one. And then I did that show, got hooked. And after that, it was like, okay, I need to put a lot of size on. And that was like my beginnings. And it kind of went on from there.
Yeah. My background's kind of similar. When I was young, my dad was a bodybuilder and he would try to get me to train. And I don't know. I shied away from it for many years. And then when I finally got into college, I was playing soccer and I needed size bad. And then I got into it and finally got hooked and quit fucking playing soccer, you know, and it was just bodybuilding from there on. So I didn't take to it immediately either. So I can kind of feel you there.
I did when I was 15, and then by the time I was 18, my mom gave me money for my first steroid cycle. So I mean, that's how far deep I was by the time I was 18. Mom's like, fuck you, if you're gonna do it, fine, I'm doing it.
Well, your mom had already, lobbied the insurance companies for your growth hormone.
Yeah, and all that stuff because of my bone disease. Yeah.
Bone disease,
so I have a wild story, Jordan, but
you have to read his book when it comes out.
Yeah. And it was just funny because I was talking to Sonia then about it yesterday. I was like, man, I mean, my mom was like, yeah, if you're going to do it, then here's the $200. And my first cycle with those pink Tide D-ball tabs and 200 milligrams of Deca, and I blew up on it because I remember the guy who sold it to me was like, if you don't put at least 15, 20 pounds on 6 weeks, bodybuilding is not the sport for you. And I just remember being but no one's like fucking honest like that anymore. Like, and I see that with the younger kids, like they'll blast trend all day. And I'm like, okay, well, try to grow without trend. It's not necessarily the best one for you to do this, like over a long period of time that it takes. So, and I always appreciated that guy's truth because he gave me like a realistic expectation. Like, hey, man, if you do this, and we've seen it, all of us have seen it. We've seen guys who take a bunch of gear and put on like 5 pounds. And I'm like, I don't know how your body's holding all that oil and you look just like that. But anyway.
I wonder that all the time, man. I wonder that all the time.
That's a good lead in for my next question. So you're going down this, you're big as shit, you're just walking around, like you've got those genetics, you're starting to probably at this point believe in yourself, kind of figure things out about things. What made you decide to do steroids? And was that you actually like looking at it and going, okay, I could probably maybe take this somewhere. I just want to see what this is like. And then how did you approach it? Because you have all sorts of approaches. You got the people who do a bunch of this, a bunch of that. You got the quote unquote safer model use people. It's really all over today in social media world. I know Jay and I came up and blasting and cruising. So curious.
What I want to add to that too is time length so that we work in, like, you did a show in 2015. Did you do another one in 2017? When was the next one? How much time did you give yourself in between? Rather than did you rush the process or did you not? Like, how did that work too?
Yeah. And I'll keep going. And then if you guys have questions along this timeline, just let me know. But I did that show in 2015. And I think that was like late summer. And I know at some point in 2016, I started with my first coach.
Okay.
And I was around 225 with some abs, like not overly fluffy. I was like 220 to 225 natty. Doing some good numbers in the gym. I was squatting 405 for reps. I was deadlifting in the mid 500s, benching,
Definitely good numbers. And you're what,
somewhere
20 at this point, Jordan? Or
I was 20, yeah. I was 20. So, and that was 2016. So like I literally I was at Gold's Gym at the time, all the time. Bro, what are you taking? What are you taking? And I'm like, no, I'm not taking anything. And no one believed me.
Of course
So
not.
I had this thought in my head. I'm like, oh, gosh, what happens when I do? So, I had a coach and he basically was talking through NPC with me. And I was like, I really want to compete in NPC, but I know, most guys are geared up and I'm not. And he's like, well, I'll be straight with you. Like going into a show like that's kind of like going into a gunfight with a knife. Like it's just what you're up against. And he's like, but I'm happy to help you that way if that's the route you decide to take. And I was like, I just was so in love with it. I knew I wanted to be the best I could possibly be. And I had that drive, I had that fire. My diet was perfect. My training was perfect. My sleep was perfect. Like everything was lined up for me. And I was like, I have no room to go. I've been stuck here for a long time and I'm obsessively doing this. And I was like, I really think that I could make a lot more progress if I just jump in and I'm all in. And so that's when that happened. And then 2017 was my first NPC show. And that was the Muscle Heat out in Greensboro, North Carolina. I won the overall novice and I got second in the heavyweights. And then I did compete in 2018.
Okay.
I did. I'm not sure why that's not on record. It's on NPC somewhere, but
Okay.
I did the same show the next year.
Okay.
And I actually worked my ass off that year and I didn't have much to show for it because the coach I was with, I have nothing against him, but he dieted me a good bit. So I was like that show in 2017, I was the lower end of the heavies, maybe like 205 and not in the best shape ever. In 2018, I was peeled out of my mind at like 195.
Okay.
But I had been busting my ass for a whole year. And you can imagine getting on stage 10 pounds lighter the next year. You're like, did I just waste my entire year?
But did you look improved and did you win?
I won the light heavies, but I didn't win the overall.
Okay. All right. So it probably was not an improvement necessarily in terms of.
I don't think so. But when I tell you, like, I literally lost 60 pounds in 16 weeks. I was like 255 and you could still see the outline of my abs pretty good. So I definitely shouldn't have dropped that much into that show.
Yep.
So that was like my breaking point of like, okay, this sucked. I have this desire to be at the national stage and eventually go pro, and I'm going to have to figure this out. And that's when I took like this forever long off season. And the next time I competed, I went pro.
Yep.
Which was in 2021. So the next
three-year hiatus
and went to USA's.
We had a three-year hiatus then, and you went.
Yeah.
And you went that year. Did you have to qualify? I obviously had to qualify again.
Yeah.
And then you knew, like, were you with Chris then? And you guys both knew, like, hey, we're good to head to really, one of the biggest national shows in the country.
That was the goal. So I went to Chris. I was with Matt Jansen prior to Chris.
Okay.
And it wasn't a very long time with him, but I had left my coach that I worked with for the 2018 show. And then I moved to Matt Jansen, and I don't think anybody really saw my potential back then, to be honest. And it's nothing against him at all as a coach. I just don't think I was getting a whole lot of attention from him.
Yep.
And I felt like, okay, I want to really have someone. Maybe I don't need someone that's like coaching Olympians. Maybe I see someone that's like turning guys pro, but works more with guys like me.
Yep.
And so I connected with Chris Tuttle, and that was in January of 2020. So I'd done like a year and a half, part of that with one coach, and then the other part with Jansen. And I made some great improvements during that time. I did. And I got up to I was probably 270 maybe 260, 270 by the time I started with Chris. but I mean, it was pretty fluffy because I'd been going and going and no mini cuts along the way. I definitely, that entire 3 years, there was no time where I slacked one bit. That's
Okay.
for sure.
So by that means you hit every meal, you weren't out late, you were just,
Right.
it was all in on bodybuilding.
It was grind all the time. I mean, I can say right now, since I was probably 21, I've not, I mean, I know for a fact I've not missed like a more than maybe a few days of training in the last 10 years. But as far as since I really locked in after that 2017 show, I've been on a diet plan ever since then. Missing a meal is like the cardinal rule of what not to do.
Yep.
So if I missed some, it was definitely like appetite's off, something's wrong, you know, those kind of things. But all through that period, I was grinding, always on a plan, always training hard. The only obstacle I hit was the one everyone hit during the pandemic. And that was just tough. And it was really after that, when I kicked things in gear, that me and Chris started to realize, okay, maybe there's some potential here.
Got it.
So yeah, that was a rocky place. But a lot of people, I've surprised quite a few people with how much I've changed in preps, because generally people see me in the off season and don't think I'm going to do much until I get to that like last 8 weeks into a show. And then people start thinking, okay, this guy means business, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
No, I mean, I was following along, and I mean, I just saw your conditioning getting better and better. And I mean, you weren't losing any fullness anywhere. So I kind of figured you were going to do pretty well. I didn't know where, but yeah, I agree with that assessment. Yeah, I could see that.
So when you say you didn't miss, what was your training like? Did you logbook it? Are you a volume guy? Are
That's a good question.
you what were you doing then? Did you rotate that? Did you rotate your diet? Did anything rotate gear? I mean, what changed? Because at that point you're making considerable progress over and over and over. You're having a belief in yourself because you said you got there fluffy. So I assumed
yeah,
you just made sure you did what you needed to do, right? How did
right.
that look like? And what was your rationale to maybe make changes to approaches along the way?
I mean, I'm one of those guys, like, you know, I've always put my trust in whatever coach I'm with, and I always do everything I'm told 100%. There have been times where I've been with a coach and not agreed. Since I've been with Chris Tuttle, and that was part of why I went with him, was the way he sees things, I see things. I do have to say I did not logbook like I should have for many years. I just mainly was always doing progressive overload, focusing on like my compound lifts. I would never like log everything, but I always had like certain goal exercises of hack squats. Like my quads were built on hack squats for years and years and years. And just I lived on this old flex hack squat that's at Biltmore Fitness in Asheville for like 6 years. I lived on that hack squat, just going up in weight, uh, perfecting my execution and my tempo every week,
Yep.
and just trying to maintain mobility and stay injury free all along the way. But generally, I mean, I haven't changed much of my training style over the years, other than maybe now I go a little bit higher reps than I used to, just to remain injury free. But as far as like, you know, prior to Chris, I'd say I trained a little bit heavier. Jansen had me training a little bit heavier and lower volume. And then once I switched over to Chris Tuttle, I'd say we increased the volume a little bit. And I do think I responded a little bit better to that. I think used to, when I was younger, I did respond really well just to crazy high intensity and more weight. But and that's where I think some of my muscle maturity has come on early, because my muscle does get really hard, separated. I get really in great condition and it just looks more dense. But I didn't start expanding that muscle as well until my volume started to increase. And that probably started to happen around like 2020. I started pushing more volume, focusing on execution. And then later on down the road, like in the past couple of years, I've been log booking more. Honestly, that's one of my regrets, is not log booking enough. But that's kind of how my training has evolved. I would say I've always trained very intense and started off with a low volume approach of a more of like a Dorian Yates style training. And then lately, in the past few years, kind of tiptoed into more using machines, slower tempos,
Yep.
more focus on tension, so I'm not hurting myself really.
Yep. Yep. I think that's wise. I mean, I'm 45. I think I did my last show at 43. And that's how my training has changed over the years. I mean, it's way more trying to perfect the rep and the execution, feeling the muscle work. I mean, we can only progressively overload so long, and the connective tissues just don't hang in. So knock on wood, I mean, even at 45, I still have good shoulders. I can press, awesome. I can do everything. My knees are in pretty good shape. So I think, that's heading in the right direction. I do think you did it right, though. I think when we're young, we should work up to those big numbers, I mean, right. So I think you're in the definitely going the right direction. And Chris is a really smart, good coach, and I know he's health focused and stuff like that. So we might hop in a little bit on that too. But I agree with that direction.
What did you do for your diet during this?
So the thing that surprises a lot of people, I think in the matter of that 3 years, I think me and Chris did one mini cut. Okay. And it was like, so I jumped in with him in 2020, January, and then the pandemic happened, and it was like, long story short, I had started dating a girl from Canada.
Oh gosh.
And that's the only time I've ever moved away from Asheville, North Carolina. And it literally lasted 7 weeks because I moved up there. The pandemic hit. I lost my job up there after like 2 weeks, and I was only there on like a holiday visa. But then all the gyms shut down. And I was training with this dude in a garage because I was like, I'm going to find a place to train. I'm not sitting here at the house, not training.
Yep.
So I found a way to train, but we like pulled down into a cruise when we were supposed to be pushing. And it was like the longest cruise I've ever done. And we're like, all right, well, let's utilize this time at least, and let's do a mini cut. So that's the only time was during that little pandemic period where I couldn't be in a really good facility and have good exercise selection of any sort. And I was just training in a garage, that we pulled back on the food and started trying to mini cut a little bit. And then I moved back home, and luckily I know the local gym owners here, they let me in. So I had a place to train even while the gyms were closed at a couple different places. And we started blasting from there. And that's kind of when we started pushing the food, and the food got decently high. I can't remember how high it got that off season prior to USA's, but I do remember struggling to eat. I remember it got high enough that I was very much sick of food for a very long period of time. And then January of 2021, either January or February, we started prep. So that was it was really a big push from 2018 in a surplus for almost the entire time, except for maybe a couple months. So
let me ask you this. I know, so you had one mini cut in there. Do you guys track your blood glucose? I mean, did you have any issues with that? I mean, I know if I push too long, I have type 2 diabetes in my family. So,
yeah.
I have shitty digestion. All this is I probably picked the wrong sport to really go all in on in my older years, but I did the best I could with what I had. So, did you have any of those issues? Like, do you have any digestion issues come up? I mean, that's a long time to just push food. And I know I just couldn't do it without blood sugar issues, digestion issues. So how did you guys manage that? Or are you just pretty much lucky in that respect? And some guys are.
I will say, I think I have pretty good genetics for it. Like, my blood sugar stayed decent. Wow. It wasn't super, super optimal, but it never got like high.
No.
So damn. I do monitor my blood sugar. I monitor my blood pressure.
Yep.
I keep those things. I keep tabs on those things all the time. I will say the next off season, which I want to get you guys' opinion on this. It was something that we Did for a little while because I haven't done much insulin use at all. Like 2 very short trial periods in the last like 5 years.
Yep.
So I did have metformin in for a time during last off season.
Okay.
When food was high for a long time, but the prior off season we didn't really have any blood sugar issues.
Okay.
But like I said, I'm sure I had some insulin resistance, just not, it was never bad enough that we had to really pull back hard.
Wow.
And digestion overall was pretty good. And we really didn't have to do that much for it until it was probably towards the end where I was really getting to where, my appetite was starting to tank and we had pushed my limit. And that it was right before we started like a really long 26-week of just steadily pulling food back down into the show.
Yep.
So I think I started my prep like 20 weeks out from the regional show in 2021. And then 6 weeks from that was USA. So it was like a 26-week total prep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got up to 270. What'd you get on stage at 225 or?
Yeah. It was, so the regional show, I was like 233 or something. And we were probably like 90% conditioning. And then at USA's, I think I weighed in at like 222 or 223. Okay. So just right under the limit. On my scale, I was a little closer. So I was kind of like worried that I was going to make the weight cut at 225, but we got there pretty handily. So
yeah. I'm pretty experienced with metformin and insulin, so I'll give you my takes on what I've seen with clients and myself over the years. Too much of it will keep you flatter and you will not grow as well, 100%. And when I mean too much, I'm talking for a lot of guys, 1,000 to 1,500 mgs for long term. I've seen where you don't stay as full and you don't grow as well. A 500 mg dose, I don't really see that. And
that's
I see
what it was.
It keeps guys more insulin sensitive. They're not flat. Very nice response, and it controls blood sugars really well. I think there's a play in between where you can use both at different times. I don't think you need both. So if you're growing and you've got insulin in, I don't know that you really need metformin. You could, but you could use the metformin when you're done with your push, bring it in also to resensitize so that your insulin is ready to roll when you bring it back in. Okay. But again, high dosing of it, I have seen it thwart my gains. I stay a lot leaner, which is cool, but I've seen it thwart gains. So I like around 500 mg range just to keep you healthy. And that's a good sweet spot, I think.
That's where we were at for the off season prior to my pro show. Yep. So once my weight got a little higher and we were really pushing carbs, because we got up to about 1,000 grams of carbs for a period this last off season. So it was just 500 every morning for quite a while, and then we cut it out in prep. So I liked it. I did see that I was definitely staying leaner than I ever thought I would at that kind of at that amount of food.
Definitely.
So I see the benefit, but I have read also where it can, prevent you from gaining the kind of muscle that you could without it.
It does. I notice, at least for me, if I'm on a really high dose, even if I try to out eat it, which I struggle with, I don't have a great digestive system, my legs won't stay as full. I'm dry, I'm lean, I look decent, but like if I'm really focused on just growing and getting back on stage, I would no higher than 500 for sure.
Gotcha. Good to know.
Yep.
Good to know. Yeah, we haven't played with insulin a whole lot, but it was like a 3-4 week period, literally, and that was last off season, and weight just started climbing too quick, and we pulled it.
Growing like a freak there.
Yeah, but it was like I felt like I was just getting fat. So.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay. See, I'm out on it, but it depends what you're using too. Were you using like Lantus, Humalog, like?
It was Humalog. Okay. But I think it was just at a point in the off season where I get watery easily. Mm-hmm. And I think my body fat set point, me and Chris agree, I think my body fat set point is a little higher than some. Okay. So like sometimes for me to continue to progress in the gym, it's almost like to gain that kind of progress and be in the surplus I need for that, it almost seems like my body likes a little bit higher body fat set point than some people, which sucks because I hate to look like that.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. That's been what it is, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But it is what it is. But that makes sense. Yep. Jeff, you were getting ready to say something?
Yeah, I played with some of that. I agree with like Jay says. I also think that just using a little bit pre and post goes a long way.
Mhm.
And I'm talking like anywhere from 3 to 5 IUs. I don't think you need a lot. I was on Lantis for a little bit, and the only problem is, man, you just gain so much water, I feel, on
Yep.
that. Like,
Yeah.
I just felt terrible. And I know I was doing because of the overeating of the carbs and so forth. I was at 500 carbs. I'm only 5'2", and I got up to like 206 before my
Okay.
bone
Yeah.
structure just said, hell no, I can't do this anymore.
Doesn't feel good.
Yeah, no, I just didn't feel good. And I've used Lantus before and I get it. And I think it's one of those like, hey, if I'm younger, and so this is for people who are listening, if you're like under the age of 30 and you're really going to be serious and you're trying to grow a weight class, Lantus is probably a benefit to you. But I think when you start getting past 35, 40, you kind of got what you got. And I don't know if it holds a lot of benefit. I don't know. And I've used it primarily more after my 35 point. But Humalog pre and post, I'm a pretty big fan of. I think
Yeah,
it's
pre and
wise to
post,
use.
even pre just to start. I mean, it's
Yep.
in.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, you're not going to lose sensitivity because it's in and out so quick. It's not a bolus dose; it's kind of trickling out all day. So,
Right.
and then you get that. I feel like it helps, like even with your mind muscle connection, because your pump's a little better. It just volumizes you. You're
So does
round.
pot.
I feel it can help a lot in those areas.
So does pot if you smoke a bunch of pot before you work out.
Well, I do that. And
I know Jay's always burning. I mean, it's
it
like,
volumizes
dude,
me
like he'll be
blood,
driving to
dude.
the gym and it's like gangster rap on and he's
Yep.
burning his weed
Yep.
pen.
That's what
And
it
I'm
is.
over there dying in hell because I'm playing gangster rap. But we
Nice.
actually have your coach coming on next week. Chris is coming on to chat with
Really
us. Yeah.
awesome.
So well, before we ask him, let's ask you, what's your plan for your next show?
Yeah,
And
man.
what are you doing? And like, what the fuck are you thinking you're going to do next? Because you shocked everyone at the last time you came out. Because everybody was like, who the hell is this guy? So
Yeah.
what are you
Well,
looking to do this next round? And is your
shock them
goal
again.
shock him again? But where are you eyeing up and like, and what are you doing right now? Like, since you won that, are you like
Good question.
going? And my question would be like that. Did you go, okay, well, maybe I need to get a massage therapist, or maybe I need to, are you building out your team the more professional you're growing? Or are you just kind of just approaching this as another off season like you did before? What changes did you make?
It's definitely a different approach. So,
Okay.
and it's a different mental approach this time too. So,
How so?
I will say something we mentioned earlier. I don't remember if it was off camera prior, but Jason, you asked me like what were my expectations prior to like USA's, prior to Texas Pro.
Yeah.
So like USA's, I told everybody like if I were to just get a first call out, I'd be on cloud nine. It would be the most amazing thing ever. That's my goal.
Yep.
And then I won the overall, and it was a stacked heavyweight class too, because the guy I beat went on to win the North Americans overall right after that. So like
Yep.
it was like good competition. And then, going into the Texas Pro, there were a lot of people talking about Carlos, Hunter,
Yep.
Andrew Jack. There was not much talk about me at all.
Mhm.
And I was just wanted to do my best. I just wanted to look like a pro. I didn't want to stand up there and look small next to everybody. And I had no idea where I would land. And then I got a top 5. So this time around, I'm like, okay, I really need to realize in my own head, like where I'm actually at, what I'm capable of. Because every time I've kind of lowered my expectations, and yeah, it's kept the pressure off of me, but I do think I can expect more of myself at this point. So me and Chris really do have a goal. Like Texas Pro was a really competitive show.
Mhm.
And there were other shows earlier in the year that definitely weren't as competitive, that I think I could have been in that top 3 mix, getting a look at a top spot in one of those shows,
I
possibly.
agree with you on your conditioning. So you got to maintain that. And I know you guys know that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For sure. And that's what actually lost me my 4th place at Texas. So in prejudging, I was 4th.
Mm-hmm.
And then we tried to play a fullness card and feed up and try to blast me as big as I could be to stand next to Carlos. And Tyler Mannion told me that's why I dropped to 5th, was because I didn't bring that same Christmas. So I've got to play to my strengths.
Yep.
So we know we're going to come in condition. It's very easy for me to get in shape. We're talking like max last prep was 40 minutes of cardio max, and that was very short. Lowest I went was 350 grams of carbs on low days. But for the most of prep, we're talking 400 to 500 on low days. And my high days were 800 to 1,000 grams of carbs probably. So I did keep my steps up. It was like 12,000 steps outside of cardio. That's an approach we definitely have. I don't sit around. But I definitely think conditioning is easy for me to attain. I've just got to stay full, and I've got to get as much size as possible. So we're planning to compete again in the middle of the year. Like at this point, for business wise, sponsorship wise, just in general, me creating a name for myself, those things alone, I need to compete more frequently. But also just, I honestly feel like I improved during the prep. And maybe at this point, now that we've done a couple shows together, I think we're realizing it's almost like I improve while I'm prepping for a show because I don't have to go so low on food. And I really don't think that I need a really long off season to get a lot of improvement in a year. And so we're just planning on, I just started 2 weeks ago, my rebound, because we basically did a health phase out of the show, 8-week health phase. Made sure blood work numbers were good. They were awesome. Everything seems really in a good spot. My body's for the most part healthy as far as joints and everything. And we're just going to push for like 20 weeks and then look to see what shows we want to do in the middle of the year and pick 2 or 3 shows. And that's kind of the plan. Probably a shorter prep because I'm not going to get as heavy as I have in the past, or at least as high body fat. So, and as you were saying, as far as is my team getting more professional, that's one of the amazing things about going to Texas is I got hooked up with Hunter Labrada's tissue guy, another
Matt
tissue guy
Christman?
out there. What is it?
Matt Christman?
No.
Christman's in Tampa.
Mario. Well, he's one of his guys. Hunter has a few different. I know there's another guy that does like he's from, are you talking about the guy from Tampa?
Yeah, he's actually coming to stay with me in 2 weeks for my UFC fight that I'm
That's
hosting at
awesome.
my house.
Now,
Cool,
it wasn't him, but I've talked to him and he's really cool because he helped me with like a nerve issue. This is something else we could talk about. If you guys have ever had this happen, I had a bad nerve issue happen in my arm after the show. But he actually hit me up on Instagram because I was asking around, or I hit him up, one or the other, and talked with him about that. But no, there's another tissue guy that lives out in Texas, and he's in Dallas every weekend. So I'm going to try to work with him, try to work and get a lot of tissue work done. Because to be honest with you guys, that's the one thing I've slacked on major is tissue work. Like I never get it done ever.
I get once a month.
Once a month.
Yeah, but I got it in my gym, so I'm able to do that shit now. So it's nice.
I'm bad. I wait till there's an issue, something's tight, and then I'm like, oh, I'll go dig this out, and then like I'm good. It's bad. But the kind of size that your client trying to acquire and that you do have, you're gonna need it. You're gonna need it.
Yeah, I mean, he worked his. So I went to stay with Hunter a couple weeks ago, and he was like, "I'm gonna get my tissue guy out here." And that he worked on my back and everything. He's like, overall, I'd say you're pretty good, like for not having much tissue work, but your traps are a problem. He's like, you've got to get that worked on. Like they are a mess.
Got it.
So I've just got to get, because my back needs to grow. That's one of my biggest things that needs to continue to improve. So I got to make sure that everything stays nice and loose and
got to be full range of motion, or else you're just not getting the growth, right? I mean, that's
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I haven't run into too many issues, but that's, that's one of the things that I'm doing to help.
I do have a question. So that's a lot of mental, in terms of, hey, I need to expect more out of myself. And I kind of can relate to you. Yeah. When I went pro, I didn't know if it was going to happen. I wasn't walking in there like, oh man, I'm going to go school this. When I made my debut, I was kind of like, if I can get a top 10, I'd be happy. I ended up a top 5, and it took me a while to start saying, all right, I can actually do this. That year I ended up one spot away from an Olympia qualification, but it took me a while to be like, I have what it takes. What are you doing to build on that? I mean, do you sit and meditate on it? Do you journal? Is it just something while you're training that you're putting, a different thought? I know for me, visualization is the way I do it, especially in preps. I'll sit there and I'll be in mid set or even doing my cardio, and my eyes will just be closed, and I visualize myself being called out in the top 5 and how I'm going to hit my poses. And so that's kind of how I do it. How are you going about truly getting your mind to realize, hey, I've Mr. USA, I was top 5 at the Texas Pro, I can do this shit and I can be an Olympian? How are you schooling your mind?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an all-day thing. Like, I'm the same way in the gym. I've always trained intense, but now it's so much more than just, okay, I want to gain muscle. It's such a bigger goal. It's like, my thought process now after this last show has been, I want to be on that Olympia stage more than anything in this whole world. And every single set counts. And these guys that I'm going to go against, they're training, every rep is perfect. Every rep is executed perfectly. And I have to have that in my mind when I'm training, but also during my day. Like, I have to think, okay, I got to wake up at the same time every day. I got to go to bed at the same time every day. I've got to have meal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like, all my meals have to be at the same time. I'm very regimented with my time frame. That's something me and Chris made like a deal on, is like, none of my meals they got to be within like 30 minute to an hour time window of every single day. And that's something I have to tell myself during my day too, not just training, is what would an Olympian do at the kind of level I have to be at? I may not be a Nick Walker genetic freak, so I'm going to have to make up for it where my genetics may not be at the level some of these guys are for size and mass or whatever. So I'm going to have to perfect my digestion, perfect my eating schedule. All my ducks have to be in a row. And I definitely just shifted my mind frame to, I truly can win a pro show and be on the Olympia stage. I don't see any reason why I couldn't do it next year, but it's on me. And if I don't make it happen, it's not going to happen. So I definitely have that mindset in the gym, but also throughout my day. It's something I visualize all the time. I think about it all the time. I truly do. And it even drives me with my business, because if I ever let my business slide, then this bodybuilding dream of mine doesn't have the finances to back it, so like, it's really in everything I do every day is for that goal, honestly.
And how old are you again, Jordan? Are you 30 now, or?
I'm 28.
28. Okay. All right.
So awesome. I got a little time.
Yeah, man. No, but hey, I like it. I mean, the visualization I found to be paramount. It's the way I go about it. Jeff, you got other stuff?
Well, I think the thing I wanted to really ask him is, how does this really go for you? You're talking about visualization. How far down the line have you really visualized? Like, how, I get it. Are you a show by show guy? Are you already holding the Olympia title? Are you sponsored by like New Ethics Formulations, Jason's company, and a smiling, friendly face? Like, you have Nike. Like, what are you really hoping to go with the bodybuilding move? Like, what do you really see on the table?
So, I mean, I've told a lot of people this. I put it this way. So everybody knows how Nick Walker is with, like, he said he was going to win the Arnold Classic, and people are like, dude, come on.
Right.
And then he did, and for the past couple of years, he says, I'm going to win the Olympia, and he hasn't done that yet. I mean, I hate to say I don't know that I would have the genetics to win a Mr. Olympia, but my goal would be top 10 in the Olympia. I would love to be top 5, top 10 in the Olympia. I'm just not one to like put that out there until I see it it's in my sights at least.
Yep.
I'm definitely one to see. I want to set high, lofty goals, but not delusional goals. I've never been a delusional person by any means, and I think it keeps me grounded. Whereas there's a lot of people, this sport attracts a lot of delusional people.
100%.
And you guys know that.
Yep.
And it's people that are like, I mean, I can't tell you how many people I've heard say, I'm going to be Mr. Olympia one day. And then next year, the guy quits bodybuilding.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, and that's not me. My goal is to let bodybuilding and my business through my career in bodybuilding to set me up for success for long term in life, for my financial goals, for my family. More than seeing me holding a Sandow, I would say I see me and my wife enjoying our life, being able to fulfill my life financially by doing what I love every day, helping people in the sport, being fulfilled that way. But I definitely have the competitive drive in me as well to be a top 10 Olympian. I would love to say I'm top 10 in the world, but more than that, it's the goals of like the career that I'm building through my competitive bodybuilding career, as well as carrying the rest of my life. So, because that's fulfillment for me, is when I can do what I love and have a great life along with it,
Now, I have read, and Jeff reads like 9,000 books a year, so he's probably read the book. But there are some people that believe not every goal needs to be spoken out and told. That sometimes holding that to the cuff can drive you more. I don't know. But I agree with that. I very much fall in line with yourself. I've never considered myself a delusional person, and I probably don't give myself enough credit on many fronts, but I think humility goes a long way. And when you find that in bodybuilding, it's a refreshing thing. So
it's not as common.
It's nice to hear. Yeah, for sure. Jeff, did you ever come across that where there's like some, studies where they say, hey, not every goal needs to be talked about, and that there's sometimes it actually helps get to the goal if you just leave it quiet? You don't need to speak every goal. Have you read any of that?
I've seen research both ways.
Oh yeah, it can go either way.
Kotler talks about the way of writing it out and preparing it, and then there's research saying that, hey, just kind of like talking to yourself about it.
Yep.
And being your own hype man and your own coach is more beneficial. I've seen that as well.
Yeah.
I think that's the better path. Like, dude, it wasn't like until like when I first competed in bodybuilding, I was thinking about this the other day. I did it, and it took me 10 years before I ever stepped on the stage. And my only thought was, as I took 5th out of 18 dudes, I was like the lightest guy by 20 pounds, was, holy shit, the judges didn't say anything about the scars on my legs, and I was kind of judged evenly. I didn't even like look at it in the lens of like, oh my God, of what I had accomplished. I looked at it like I just blended in for once.
Yeah.
And was able to. So for me, I don't know. I've always done things.
But wasn't that what the search of muscle was all about for you?
Yeah. But I mean, I think there was that idea of I wanted to do it, right? Like, I want to see how far I could take this bone disease with bodybuilding. Like, it was a well thought out idea to myself, but I didn't get on social media every day and be like, look, you guys, I'm on my chase to become a bodybuilder with brittle bone disease. I just didn't fucking care, because it was just a matter of like what I needed to do. And I knew if I didn't just check boxes daily, it didn't matter what I said. And I think a lot of people do that, man. Like, they talk out one side of their mouth and they shit out the other side with non-action. And I'm just okay, you can talk a lot, and then nowadays they can post it, then delete it, and then not mean it. And I'm like, okay, you break your promises to yourself. That's all I need to know. It's okay. You got no character.
Right. And that's where I think that's how I am. And I respect that from you, because these days, anybody that has any disadvantage in anything, they want everyone to know their disadvantage first. Mm-hmm. They want everybody to know that this is what I'm up against, and so that's why I'm not here. And they play the victim card. So I respect you for that, for pushing yourself in that way. But I've told a lot of people this, I don't believe in manifestation. It's what everybody wants to talk about now. They're like, manifest it into being. And I just don't believe that we can manifest anything into being. We take action to make things come into being. So you just saying it gets absolutely nothing accomplished at all. And that's what drives me nuts, because I see it all the time. I see these people say these things and their actions never match it. So I'm like, I'd rather people see my actions speak so loud that they're just like, this guy for sure is going to make it far. And I don't have to say anything about it because they just see the results and they see me do it every day and they know that's what I'm about. I don't have to tell you what I'm about, you know. That's the way I've always been.
Let me ask you this.
I
Since
was
I'm
gonna say something, Scoob. I agree
Go
with
ahead,
that
go ahead.
about the whole victim thing because like Jay knows this. Like we've been working together for like 10 years, Case and I. In 2015 or 16, I was doing the squatting. And on
Oh
my
yeah.
seventh rep, I came up and my femur broke around my rod, like hairline fracture, all the things. So I collapsed, but I luckily caught it. And I got out and I laid there for a minute. I was like, this is not how it ends. I tried to leg press, I couldn't. So for the next fucking 3 weeks, Jay knows this. I hopped on the step mill with my left leg only, with that right
Gosh,
fucking broken leg kicking behind me, and ended up placing second back-to-back weekends. And I didn't say a word
that's
about it. It was
mhm.
just I wanted to like. I think a lot of the people who do good in bodybuilding or don't have like some sad sob story about it took my life away and everything like that. Look at it for the personal growth it can provide you
Oh,
through the
100%.
challenges of overcoming. And I think that's what it is. And I mean, I get it. I love it when a good underdog gets into the ring, but I'm like, I think a lot of people lose that bite the more they talk about it. And
Yeah,
sometimes it's good to sit in silence and stew over things and kind of
I
have
agree.
that critic. So I think that's cool as shit that you think like that. And Jay, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to point
Well,
that
you know,
out.
I was
I
going to just
agree.
switch gears just a little bit. I know we're
Sure.
coming up on our hour.
Yeah, we got like
You
one
know,
more each.
Jordan mentioned, he quit his job. I don't know what he did prior, but I did the same thing. Jordan, I don't know if in my background, I was a lawyer for many
Okay.
years, building my business,
Wow.
and it finally got to the point where I had a shit or get off the pot, and I went all in 2018, but I burnt the candle at both ends for many years, and it probably took its
Mhm.
toll on my marriage and really a lot of things. And I was trying to be a bodybuilder, I was trying to be a lawyer, I was trying to be a coach, and everything else. But I guess my question to you is: did you find stress relief and not having to go to a 9 to 5, or did entrepreneurship and building a Jordan Hutchinson brand did pose its other and new stressors to you? I'm
Funny
curious.
you asked that. Me and Chris, me and my coach were literally having this conversation, and I love how he put it. He said, happiness is a choice based on perspective, because we were talking about stress.
Very smart.
And to be honest, man, this past few weeks, several weeks, I've been beyond stressed.
Okay.
And it's just been, it's like, I'm sure you know this. It's like opportunities present themselves to people that like to hustle.
Yep.
And then you always take on too much at once. And
Mm-hmm.
so, like, I'm moving, I'm taking on new clients, I'm trying to make sure I do every single thing right, check every single box with my bodybuilding.
Yep.
That never misses no matter what. So I have this limited time as it is. So I would say at first it was like, oh my gosh, everything's open to me now. And like
Yep.
there was that little bit of financial stress of like, I hope that we can make ends meet.
Yep.
But honestly, me and my wife actually, she started doing her own like Airbnb cleaning business right the same month that I quit my job. And
So two
we actually
entrepreneurs.
we did really well. We did
Okay.
really well last year. And then she's been able to slow down a little bit, and my business has picked up this year.
Okay.
And so that's another thing is it's been more of like I'm trying to take on as much as I possibly can so that when I move to Texas, I know that I'm set and I'm good.
Yep.
But that does, like you said, it comes with its own stress. But
Yep.
it's like sometimes I have to remember the perspective of when I was sitting at that last job, I would have killed to be here.
Yep.
Like 3, 4, 5 years ago, I would not have believed that I would be in the position I am to work from home, to work from my own brand, monetize my own brand.
Yep.
And that was always my dream. So it's like I have to keep that perspective, that's for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing is, there's no really security blanket. That's what happened. What I felt when I took it away. And there's stress in that, but there's also, if you're a grinder, you work harder. And
Exactly.
you'll make opportunities. Obviously there has to be something there, but you obviously have something, so you'll grind harder. And I think having the bodybuilding background, we're kind of just made differently.
Yeah.
But the stress is, it's nice to not go to 9 to 5, but I know Jeff will tell you too. He owns a gym, he's a coach and personal trainer and all that, and it's just a different type of stress, but it's always
Right.
going to be there, and that grind is always going to be there. So
There's a good quote
Absolutely.
to remember when you get into business for yourself. It is, Lord, give me this. Lord, I can protect myself from my enemies. Lord, give me the strength to protect myself from my friends. And that
Yeah.
is a true thing in entrepreneurship to remember as you go down this journey. I always tell
Yeah.
people I start working with them, but my actual final question to you is this. In a day and age where social media is the hype and you could be there 1 minute and gone the next, what advice do you have to someone who's listening to this and going, I don't know if I want to take that much time off to really improve? Because I can look back on my career, and I think Jason agrees. We come from that generation. We did it every year. It was very cyclical. And that maybe held back some of our gains. I go look back on those times like, damn, I wish I had just taken that time off, hammered the gear, hammered the food, done what I needed to do, and then just wrote it out from there. What advice do you have for people who struggle with this and don't want to in a day and age where all the pressure says you have to?
Yeah. I mean, my advice has been and always will be, you've got to know if you really love this for the sport or if you love this because you like the attention you get from it.
yeah,
And the problem is that a lot of the guys that are in the sport or that gravitate to the sport initially without understanding what they're getting themselves into as far as the dedication, the work, the diet, everything that people don't want to do, they go into it looking at it as, oh, if I'm this person on social media and in the gym, everybody's going to think I'm really cool and I'm going to get all this attention. Whereas most of us successful guys in bodybuilding started out loving the grind first. We loved the process of building muscle, training every day, eating to fuel our training. And then it was like, okay, now I'm getting into this where I compete because I love this already. And so, I have a lot of younger guys, especially, will reach out to me and talk to me about, hey, I heard you talking about taking long off seasons and you inspired me to, take the time off and not worry about having abs for Instagram and not worry about how I look in the off season, whatever. And it's not to say be lazy and get fat, because I was not eating off plan all the time. It doesn't mean to dirty bulk like some of these kids want to do, but it's sacrificing the popular look where people are looking at you and thinking, wow, you look incredible, for a time to grind and sacrificing that attention for a little bit in order to project yourself. Because if I didn't take the time off that I have in between shows, I would not be where I'm at. Because over since 2018, I've averaged 10 pounds of stage weight per year, because I was 195 in 2018 and I was 243 on the Texas Pro stage.
wow,
with just as good conditioning. So it's like, that wouldn't have been possible if I hadn't sacrificed the attention. And there was definitely a lot of, well, you kind of look like a power lifter. Are you sure? Or you're a bodybuilder? Like,
yeah,
I got a lot of that. I got a lot of people doubting me, wondering why. A lot of people are like, man, why do you do this for so long? Like, you're going to regret this one day when
yep,
you skipped out on these parties and you skipped out on having food with us. And I was like, just wait. And so if you're confident in yourself, you can see past that and know that you don't need that attention and the instant gratification, and just put in the time. It's about putting in the time for sure.
I have a great idea to wrap this up because I want to bring you back on, but I want to bring you back on with my buddy Cade Zook. You know him, IFB Pro?
oh yeah,
Yeah.
So, what's funny? Just real quick, Cade did that 2017
oh no
Muscle
shit,
Heat show to
Yeah.
re-qualify right after he had done a national show.
Yep.
And I remember seeing him backstage and talking to him like, this dude is gigantic,
Yeah. Cade's a
because
big
he's tall
motherfucker.
too.
Yeah, he's
yeah,
What
6'3".
is it?
He's
Yeah,
six
yeah, yeah,
three, and
yeah.
he was
He's
like
huge.
330 in his off season at one point. just big
So
boy.
you can imagine me at my first NPC show. I'm like, gosh, these are what pros look like. So
Yeah, no shit. Yeah, he's big boy, but
yeah.
I'd like to.
So I know him. I don't know if he remembers me, but
No, he probably he keeps up with people more than you would think. He's just quiet, but I think that'd be a cool idea to maybe get some Q&A from our audience and chat with you guys, because you guys have been about the most open conversations we've had in terms of just what it really looks like from a personal lens to the sport,
yeah.
and not a marketing business. This is me, I'm trying to sell you kind of chat. So I really appreciate it. I gave you a follow on social on IG. Where can everybody
Okay.
follow you? Who are you looking for clients? How can they get a hold of you? Shit like that, my man.
Yeah.
Close it out.
Yeah. So my Instagram's IFBB_Jordan Hutchinson. I'm taking all kinds of clients. I try to keep my competitor list like limited. So I don't like to have tons of people competing all around the same time frame. So, but overall, I take all kinds of clients. But you guys can hit me up on there, follow me there. I'm mostly on Instagram. I dip my toes into TikTok, but I can't handle that app. It's it's frustrating for me. I'm not in that generation. So, but overall, Instagram is what I do, and I'm getting more involved in my YouTube, doing vlogs and stuff like that. So subscribe to my YouTube, and you can watch me there as well.
Sweet, man. Well, thanks for taking the time to join us, and all the success on your move, man. Anytime
Thank
you're
you.
going out there, do something fucking that you're not used to doing, it's the right move. I can tell you that.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Thank you guys for having me on, and
Of course.
I'll be in Texas next time we talk, I'm sure. So
Awesome.
be happy to get back on again.
Sweet. We look forward to chatting, man. Have yourself a great day.
See everyone.
Thank you guys. See y'all.